Is going into a deep Asian squat or Slav squat or Primal squat or Hindu squat actually bad and dangerous for your knees? Is a deep squat dangerous for your low back or your hips? Does being in a deep Asian squat hurt your knees because your knees are too far forward? Is it bad for you to be in this resting squat position? In this video, we're going to talk about the myths and realities about the deep Asian squat or primal squat. We're going to talk about how this Slav squat actually affects your body. We're going to talk about why doctors often say things like, hey, going into that deep squat is bad for you. And we're going to talk about how often you can safely do this deep squat position so that your hips, knees, ankles, and spine stay healthy for the long run. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. First things first, this is the deep squat position. We're going down low, butt gets basically to the floor, hamstrings are touching our calves, our knees are flexed, our hips are flexed, our spine may even be a little bit flexed and rounded in the lower back. All of this is known as the resting squat, Slav squat, Gopnik squat, Asian squat, Hindu squat, and even Ethiopian Hadza squat, tribal squat, whatever squat. All of it is the same. You're down in the low squatting position, crouched low to the floor, and you can just hang out here. This position is generally comfortable if you have to do it often. But in the Western world, we often live in our chairs, we sit on benches, we sit in seats, we sit in our cars, and our hips and knees and ankles lose the mobility and the strength to get into this position. So why do doctors then tell us that this is a terrible position? Doctors often tell us that letting our knees go in front of our feet and ankles is dangerous for our knees. Many doctors will also say things like, oh, you don't ever want to go and stay in this deep resting squat position because it's bad for your hips and it's bad for your back. Why would they say that? Well, it's a really important question, and you have to address this fear right now if you ever want to get better at being in this position. So think about this. Is it dangerous for your knees to go in front of your feet and ankles? This is very popular mythology in the physical therapy and functional training world, exercise world. Personal trainers will say this, doctors will say this, chiropractors will say this. But think about this. In every athletic sport that requires a fast, explosive movement and changes of direction, you need to have the ability to get your knees in front of your ankle, your foot, and your toes safely. That's why if you look at surfing, baseball, hockey, sprinting, tennis, basketball, literally any sport that requires deep knee flexion, the knees have to be able to go in front of the foot and ankle, and definitely in front of the toes. It's just a natural course of the activity. The reason you don't see athletes suddenly destroying their knees on every single sprint or change of direction is because they train it and the muscles around their knees are ready for it. That means if you train your muscles so that they can handle that joint position and configuration of your leg, you too can be safe. So what is the reason that doctors and trainers and PTs will say, don't ever do that, it's dangerous? The reality is they're saying that because so many Westerners who live and work in chairs lack the flexibility, lack the strength, coordination, etc. to be able to get into that position comfortably and get out of that position comfortably. So if you're in a group fitness class and your trainer says, hey, when you do your squat, make sure you never let your knees go forward, that's because they're playing the odds. And the odds are your leg strength and your hip mobility is so poor, you probably can't do it safely. It's probably going to hurt, and you're probably going to blame them for hurting yourself. The reality is, what they should be doing is helping you learn how to adopt that knees over toes position so that you have more options, more range of motion, more strength and flexibility. That's going to give you the ability to live your life without fear. But the easiest thing to say, if you're a doctor, chiropractor, PT, or trainer, is, hey, Just don't do this thing that is currently too hard for you because you might get hurt doing it. That, however, puts the incorrect thought in your mind and the incorrect belief that it's something you can't ever do. You should be able to do it. How do I know this? Because if you look at billions of people all around the world outside of the industrialized Western societies, you will see that people outside of these high-tech first world countries are able to get in the deep squat position for their entire lives. Whether they're children, teenagers, working adults, or elderly people in their 80s and 90s, the deep squat position called the Asian squat, or really it should be called the human squat, it's not a problem. Older people are able to do it. It's achievable and they do it all the time. Hey, I just want to say big thanks to Doris for her $10 donation and to Marita for her $15 Australian donation to the Upright Health channel. If you want to help support me too, just use that thanks button down below or the PayPal link in the description box. Now let's get back to it. Now, why are people able to do it all the way into old age when older Westerners are unable to do it? The answer is pretty simple. With your muscles, you either use them or you lose them. So if you live in a society like in, say, America, you sit in a chair, your toilets are tall, your couches are really tall, your work seats are tall, the car you drive is an SUV that has a nice tall seat, and the whole car itself is tall, so you never actually have to crouch low and flex your hips in order to get into it. You are going to lose the ability to bend your hips, flex your hips into this deeper squat position. You live most of your life here, right? It's in this angle that you live. But if you live in a country that has squat toilets, that doesn't have tall chairs, benches, and stools everywhere for everyone to sit in all the time, then you're going to need to find a way to rest. You're going to need to find a way to pass the time. And in many countries and many societies, that looks like this. That's why when you look at countries like China, Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Peru, if you look at Ethiopians, if you look at Aboriginal tribes, native tribes like the Hadza, you'll see that humans sit in a squat, deep in a squat, all their lives. And you'll see that even in these Aboriginal tribes, that they are able to do this basically until the day they die. Because if you don't have a seat, which you don't because you live in the desert or a jungle or whatever, you have to find a position that's restful, that doesn't require you to drag around a big bench all the time, right? Here, boom, you're sitting, you don't have your butt on the ground. And by the way, if you didn't have toilets in your jungle or whatever, in your tribal environment, guess what? No toilets? How are you going to poo? You think you're going to poo standing up? Or you're just going to take a wide squat like this and then just stay here for however long it takes you to poo? I don't know. Hopefully it's relatively fast. But I mean, how long can you hold this position and poo comfortably? Not very well, because you're going to be clenching your butt cheeks and everything. But if you drop into this, guess what? You get to poo really easy. And then if you're a woman and you need to use the bathroom, how do you think women without tall Western style toilets use the bathroom? They're not going to do it standing up. They need to squat down. This is a human squat that everyone should be able to do. The only reason medical Western authorities and exercise authorities say your knees shouldn't go over toes is because those authorities have often lost the ability to control that position for themselves, see how many people have also lost that ability, and then conclude erroneously that humans in general should not be able to go into this position because it's just generally dangerous. The reality is we have a society, culture, and general movement system and bias that makes us really weak and really inflexible and unable to get into this position. So if you want to be an actual human who can do a normal human thing, it's just going to take some time and training and correcting this erroneous belief that somehow your knees cannot go into a certain relationship relative to your feet. So if you want to become a human who can do an Asian squat, Hindu squat, Slav squat, Gopnik squat, whatever squat, primal squat, human squat, then the key is to practice it often. How often can you do this squat position? How deep should you do this squat position? The answer is it depends. You want to do this deep squat position as close to as deep as you can, that you can tolerate, as much as you can tolerate on a daily basis. Now that could mean that for you, it's not very deep. Maybe it's only a few inches down and that feels really, really tough and maybe even dangerous for your knees. So you need to spend time building strength through a really big range of motion so that you can eventually get back down to this position. Maybe you're somebody who's really flexible, but you find getting up out of this position is really hard. You're gonna need to work on building the strength to recover from this position. It is just gonna depend on where you're at now and what your life looks like now and has looked like over the last few decades. If you are very stiff and inflexible, then it's gonna be hard to get here. It'll take time, but you can get there. The key thing to remember is you don't want to cripple yourself with soreness by going too intensely. You want to just give yourself enough of a dose to make it challenging and allow your body enough time to recover so that it can get stronger and used to being in that deep squat position. So maybe when you start, it's only going to be 2 or 3 times a week that you work on it. Maybe it's a minute a day, but you do it every single day. It's really going to depend. I have created some videos that should help you. I'm going to link to them up here and also down in the description box. I'm going to show you some exercises you can do to help you get into the deep squat, and I'm going to give you some ideas to help you troubleshoot your knees and your ankles so that you get the flexibility and strength that you need in order to get into the deep Asian squat position. Just go ahead and check those links out later. Hopefully now you understand how to think right about this situation. There's no need to fear letting your knees go forward over your feet and ankles. You just need to be mindful and careful so that you can do it safely and build the strength and flexibility gradually so you don't hurt yourself trying to become a human being again. If you found this video helpful and you want to support the channel, please use that thanks button down below or the PayPal link that's in the description box to leave me a tip. I really appreciate it, and I promise I will use that money to buy a meal that I can eat while in a deep squat position. I'm pretty hungry right now. It's around lunchtime. If you don't want to leave me a monetary tip, that's totally fine. Hit the like button, share this video with somebody you know who wants to deep squat too, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. I'm Matt Hsu from Upright Health, reminding you that pain sucks, life shouldn't.